Hi, I'm Dr. Loretta, and here are some things that your therapist is not. And it's good for you to understand what your therapist is not to be able to properly establish boundaries for you to have effective treatment while in therapy. Your therapist is not your friend. While you're in therapy, you also still need your friends because there are some things your friends can do for you that your therapist cannot do for you. Your therapist is an unbiased opinion that tells you things like it is. Your therapist is not there to banter with you. Your therapist is not there to cry with you. Don't get me wrong. If your therapist cries with you, it doesn't mean that that's wrong. I'm just saying that typically that's not what your therapist is there for. Your therapist is that neutral person that gives you their unbiased opinion. So, like I said, your therapist is not your friend. It's very necessary for you to still have your friends while you have your therapist because there are roles your friends can't play for you that your therapist cannot play, and shoes your therapist cannot fill for you because there are limitations in therapy. And one of which is if you are someone who wants a hug, your therapist, I'm not saying necessarily that it's wrong for your therapist to hug you, but then you're not offended if your therapist refuses to hug you because this is also individual preference, and it's okay for your therapist to not want to hug you because your therapist is still an individual whose rights still needs to be respected, and it's totally up to them if they don't feel comfortable doing it or if it obstructs their values in some way, form, shape, or manner. They're entitled to not wanting to do that with you. Your therapist cannot always hold your hands at every point in time because the only time you have access to your therapist is during your therapy sessions and not throughout the week and night. You can't be calling up your therapist in the middle of the night and be like, hey, this happened. He broke up with me. You cannot be doing that. You need to also be respectful of your therapist's time. And every time your therapist spends with you is paid. But your friend is a free resource and a free shoulder for you to cry on that you don't have to pay for. Okay? Your therapist is not a magician or a miracle worker or a psychic or a mind reader. Manage your expectations with your therapist. Don't expect that your therapist has all the answers because they're also humans. They have the educational backing, they have the board certification, they have the licensure, but it doesn't make them all knowing. They only know so much, they can only help you so much. Some of the burden of what needs to be done in therapy also falls on you as the individual. Okay? Your therapist is not your legal advisor. Your therapist, even if they have some law degree, for that moment that you guys are in therapy, the reason why your therapist is there is provide you clinical expertise, clinical treatment, not legal advice. Okay? Your therapist is not your boss. Your therapist does not tell you what to do. The therapist gives you advice and recommendations, not boss you around and not get mad when they tell you to do something and you don't do it. Your therapist is not the boss of you. At the end of the day, it's your life and you live your life the way you want and the way it pleases you. Remember, since you're the one soliciting their services, you can terminate it at any point in time. Your therapist does not tell you how to live your life. Your therapist provides recommendations, and with recommendations comes the choice of doing it or not. Okay? Working with your therapist, be open, be free to ask questions, ask them about their licenses, ask them about their experiences. That's something you're entitled to. I don't see people buying products and they don't have product review on the product or they don't have manuals that come with the product. The fact that this is a service does not mean that you're not entitled to manufacturer's information. You're entitled to know what kind of licensure, you're entitled to know details about your therapist's expertise. Okay? The therapist is not the one needing the help. You're the one needing the help. So an amount of that work needs to be coming from you. You need to be meeting your therapist at a certain point to be able to get the results that you're looking for. Your therapist cannot be working harder than you. You need to either be working equally as hard or you are working harder than the therapist. Your therapist cannot be working harder than you. Your therapist is not your judge. You have the right to seek mental health services and not feel judged for your choices, for your approach, and not feel judged for anything at all. Because, again, like I said, it is you, about your life, and you have the right to the choices you make. You have the right to live your life the way you want to live your life, okay? Your coming to therapy has little to do with your therapist, but has everything to do with you. So whatever you're doing, and if you feel judged in therapy, that should be addressed with your therapist. And if you feel like that therapist is not readjusting, it's not meeting your need, then that might be a time for you to start to look for another therapist. Your therapist is not your business partner. If you need a business partner, I get it. Usually when people have built therapeutic relationship with their therapist, they feel like the therapist can jump in, they can tell the therapist everything, or now I trust you because I trust you. We can do XYZ, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. Your therapist is not your business partner. It is unethical for your therapist to engage in business relationships with you. Okay? Your therapist is not your superhero. The therapist cannot jump in every time to save the day for you. Like I said, you need to have boundaries. You also need to be respectful of your therapist's time and respectful of the therapeutic relationship you guys have. The therapist is not your shrink. I know that this is a slang that's out there that people use to describe therapy. I feel like that terminology takes away from what a therapist does. A therapist provides treatment. A therapist is not just someone you just sit down there and vent. And don't get me wrong, that can happen in session, but sessions are not just for venting. Your therapist is there to provide you treatment. Your therapist is not your shrink. This is a personal thing for me. I feel like shrink is a demeaning terminology to use when talking about mental health and mental illness. So for you as an individual, that's you being condescending towards yourself when you describe your therapist as a shrink. I hope this has been helpful to you guys. If you're yet to, please like, please subscribe. It helps with the YouTube algorithm so that this video can be shared even more to other people, and so that I can know that you're finding this content beneficial. And hey, it is also encouraging to me to know that you like what I'm doing. And if you haven't, please share with your friends and your loved ones. You do not know who this video is going to be helping, okay? I hope you do have a good rest of your day. Bye.